Hello, everybody, and welcome back. It's Championship predictions time. And you've got to forgive me now if I don't perform very well, because I am in the presence of greatness here. Ipswich Town's, well, should we say it, Matt? Last successful captain, Charlton Athletic legend as well. Matt Holland, how are you doing, sir?
I'm pretty good, thank you. Yeah, nice introduction. Very kind. Too kind.
Oh, no. For Ipswich fans of my vintage, it's quite sad, actually, because the good times kind of start with you arriving and they kind of disappear with you leaving. But
we'll be back.
Will talk. I very, very much hope so. And we'll talk more with Matt over on Patreon after we've done this. But his appearance record and midfield skills may be untouchable. But how good is he at predicting football scores? And have you worked with Sam Parkin on the pundit circuit?
I know Sam very well. Yeah, I've done a few podcasts with him and stuff. I know he's very good, isn't he?
I'm just starting to get annoyed with him now because he was the first guest that we put on, and I don't think anyone's ever going to get near him on the leaderboard, which is just kind of ruins the fun for everyone, doesn't it?
Well, we can have a go though, can't we? We can always try.
So the scoring system, Matt, if you get the outcome, so you get the score completely wrong, but you get the outcome, we'll give you a point. The home score will give you a point. The away score will give you a point. If you get everything, so the outcome, home, away, I'll give you a bonus point, and we get 4. I actually got a PB last week on the FA Cup, and I'm still 2 off bloody Parkin's high-level top score. But here's one for the Ipswich fans. Norwich City commentator Chris Gorham scored 12, so I think you need to be above him.
I'll do my best.
Like penalty shootouts, I've got to give you the choice, being you're the guest. Would you like to hear my ramblings first, or would you like to go first so you don't get influenced by my ramblings?
No, I think it's always good to hear what you've got to say first. Get the expert's view first, haven't you?
Whatever. Come on, stop it. Deary me. Right, let's start off on Friday night then. West Brom versus Coventry. West Brom have been really good since Carlos Corberan came in. Coventry are decent. I do have West Brom above them in terms of sort of personnel generally across their team. West Brom slipped last time, but they were playing against Burnley. So I'm with West Brom on this one, Matt. And I think a low-scoring win. I will go 1-0 to the Baggies. What say you?
I agree with you. I think West Brom win this game. I think they've won their last 5 at home. Although Coventry did beat West Brom earlier in the season, they have been better since Carlos Corberan took over. A couple of good loan signings as well. Mark Albrighton coming in. Nathaniel Chalabar as well. I'm going to go for a home win as well. Slightly bigger scoreline. I'm going to go 2-0 West Brom.
Do you remember the beautiful goal you scored at the Hawthorns where you kind of fell over as you put it in and it went in the opposite corner and you hit it?
Slips, and fortunately went over the goalkeeper. I hit it into the ground. I think it bounced over his legs and into the back of the net. I do remember it very well.
High pressure goal, that one as well. I remember the end of that running. God. On to Saturday. This is a difficult one to call, Matt. Norwich versus Burnley. So Norwich have got this big bounce with Wagner, but Burnley are obviously so good. It sounds a bit predictable, but I think it'll even itself out. And I think I'm on a scoring draw on this one. Maybe Norwich will take the lead with the bounce and Burnley will kind of peg them back. So let's go for an exciting one for the TV cameras. I'll go for a Desmond. I'll go 2-2 Norwich-Burnley. What do you reckon?
I'm going to tip Burnley to do something they couldn't do at Portman Road, and that's win in East Anglia.
Don't tell Chris Sutton.
Well, exactly. Look, they're top by a mile. They're so far clear of third. They're already promoted, Burnley. You're right. Norwich have been on good form lately, but I fancy Burnley to have a little bit too much. So I'm going to go Norwich 1, Burnley 2.
You'll be very popular, as if you weren't already, with Ipswich fans. Rotherham versus Sheffield United. I think Rotherham have had an all right window, considering they sold Barlaser, who's their most experienced. But I think Hugo will actually be quite good for them. And here comes the big but. Sheffield United kept Berger and they kept Njayi, and those two at the top, like you say, are pretty much over the hills and far away. Feels like one of those unfair local derbies as well, where, and Rotherham fans will hate me for saying it, where one team feels a lot more powerful than the other. So I will go for the Blades. Do you know what? I'll go for the Blades clear by 2. 2-0, Rotherham 0, Sheffield United 2.
Well, we're not too dissimilar again. I fancy Sheffield United. I do think they'll win it. I think it'll be a little bit tighter. I'm going to say Rotherham 1, Sheffield United 2.
We're close on that one. Huddersfield versus QPR. This one's confusing the hell out of me because Huddersfield are a bit hotchy-potchy all over the place. It feels like they've had a bit of a gambly transfer window. There's a few players who could really be good, or whether they've still got it up their sleeve or not. And QPR are just stinking out a little bit at the moment, and Willock is not the Willock we had before, and I think the fans wanted a striker to come in. So I might go for what would be by the table an upset, but by the form maybe not. I'll throw the wild card in, Matt, and I'll back Huddersfield against my better judgment. And Rangers are a bit light up front. Let's go 1-0 Huddersfield, although I'm already regretting that one.
Yeah, I think it's a really difficult one to call as well. QPR haven't won in the league this year. I don't think go to Huddersfield and win either. I think this is a tricky game. I'm gonna say a draw. I'm gonna go 1-1.
That's probably more sensible than mine. Hull versus Cardiff. Now I have an unfair advantage here, Matt, because I literally saw Cardiff play last night at Luton, and they looked immediately like Sabri Lamucci, sort of sit behind the ball, stay in shape, try and get the ball to the wide players on the break. But I quite like what Liam Rossini is doing with Hull. So I fancy Hull in this one, but it's not going to be a high scorer again because Cardiff they're not going to give up many chances, I don't think, under Lamucci. So I'll go a 1-0 to Hull.
Cool. Well, you took the words out of my mouth. Exactly the same.
You can double up, Matt, if you want.
What do you mean double up? I can go
make
exactly
the same call. Yeah, if you want.
Well, that is exactly what I mean. I've written a few down, and I've got 1-0. I work quite a lot with Liam's dad, Leroy. Do quite a lot of stuff, so I'm always sort of picking his brains on what Liam's up to. And I'm a bit like you. I'm a big fan of his. I think he's tactically very good. Knows his stuff. Cardiff are they might even be the lowest scorers in the Championship. Certainly down there anyway. So I'm a bit like you. I think it'll be a really tight game, but I'm going to go 1-0 to Hull as well.
Okay, we are matched up on that one. Luton versus Stoke, which I've called the Nathan Jones derby for about the last 3 years, but he's gone now, hasn't he? So we'll have to call it something else. Luton weren't at their best last night. They managed to get through. I almost think playing a team that's not going to sit behind the ball for the entire game probably suits them a little bit better, and they can circulate the ball the way they want to. I think Stoke will be a bit more of a challenge, but I think they might win again, actually. I think we might get back-to-back home wins for Luton. I think Stoke will score. Let's go for a goalie one, because I haven't so far. 3-1 to Luton.
Interesting. I think Stoke have done a good bit of business on deadline day. Ben Pearson, Tuanzebe come in as well. I know they lost Harry Suter, didn't they, to Leicester. I think it will be a tougher game for Luton than it was against Cardiff. I'm going to say a draw in this one. I'm going to go 1-1.
Like it. Middlesbrough versus Blackpool. And good old Mick McCarthy is back. But speaking of good business, Cameron Archer and, Matt, who did they bring in midfield? Barlaser, we already mentioned him. Yeah. And Ramsey as well, who we thought was going to be out, thought had left Norwich because of injury. So I think Blackpool will get a bit of a bounce from Mick and will all of a sudden be harder to beat. But I just can't see them stopping Middlesbrough in Middlesbrough. So I was going to say a 1-0 to give some credit to Mick's organisational skills. Let's go 2-0 Borough. Yeah,
I love Mick to bits. I worked under him with Ireland. Such a good guy. Surprised he wants to get back in the dugout, but it's in his blood.
He loves it.
He absolutely loves it. And saw his quotes this week, or maybe last week. Substance, what was it? Yes, safety over style, I think it was, something like that. And that's typical Mick, isn't it? So I think they will be more difficult to beat. I think they'll be a bit more pragmatic, if you like. But Middlesbrough are in good form, very good form at home. Won the last 4 at home as well. So might be a little bit. So I'll say 2-1. I'll say 2-1 Middlesbrough.
Millwall versus Sunderland. I'm a bit conflicted on Sunderland because I like what they've done, but it feels like their signings for tomorrow a little bit rather than bang now. And of course, they've lost the star striker as well. Millwall, we always tip up at home, and that's not a cliche. They do well at home. So I think I might go with the Lions, and maybe Sunderland are going to be a bit blunted without Ross Stewart, although Gelhardt will probably be quite a good acquisition in from Leeds. Let's go for, will they score or not? Let's go for Sunderland to score, but let's go 2-1 Millwall.
Okay. I like Joe Gelhardt, seen him a couple of times at Leeds. He's a handful. Obviously, big fan of Tony Mowbray and Mark Venus as well, so always want them to do well. I'll say that they'll be tough to beat, and there's nothing between these two in the league. Is that just a point? I think
no.
So they're very evenly matched. I'll say a 1-1 draw again in this one.
Preston versus Bristol City. We tend to back against Preston at home and for them away. Bristol City have lost Semenyo, but I think Mehmeti, who's just come from Wickham and Cornick, are good pickups. I'm probably going to contradict myself because I've just done a video saying they've had a bad transfer window, but maybe they're going to get a point. Maybe they're not going to win. And I haven't played a 0-0 yet, have I? So let's do a real horrible, boring. Let's go back to the start of the season for Preston. Let's tip up a 0-0 for Preston Bristol City.
I think Bristol City are unbeaten in 7 games now. I think in all competitions.
Wow.
Yeah, believe it or not, I think they're unbeaten in 7, but they are the draw specialists. They beat West Brom, didn't they, in the FA Cup last week as well. So that was a good result for them. And I'm going to go for it. I'm going to go for a draw as well. But I'm going to say they'll both score. I'm going to say 1-1 in this.
Okay. Reading versus Watford. Oh, if this was at Watford, I'd really be heavily on them, but it's not. And Watford are just confusing at the moment. They could win 3-0 or stink it out and lose 1-0, couldn't they? I'll go for star power. And I wouldn't say this to Paul Ince or Alex Ray's face because they were sat right next to me at Luton last night. But let's go 2-0 Watford. We'll assume that this will be one of the games where Sarr and the boys turn up. Well,
Sam Parkin said that they can't afford to drop another point. If they've got any chance of catching the top 2, they can't afford to drop another point. I think that's way out of reach anyway. They're not going to do that. But the necessity for them to win is huge. So I fancy them to go there and nick it as well. I'm going to say 2-1 Watford.
Swansea versus Birmingham. The Swansea fans I spoke to, Matt, last night were not happy with the transfer window, with Obafemi sort of steering his way out. Whittaker seems grumpy. And I think they thought they were getting Carlin Grant. And for some reason, that didn't happen. So there seems to be a bit of a downer there. So I think Birmingham might be able to go there and get something. The form would probably tell you otherwise. I'll go for a 1-1 on the basis that Russ Martin might have to. It might be more a psychological job he's got there on the tactical one.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from. I actually think Swansea probably have too much purely on the form. Birmingham lost in the cup. They're 5 without a win in the Championship as well. I'm going to say 2-1 Swansea.
And the last one, Blackburn versus Wigan. And it's a bit boring, but I just keep backing against Wigan because of the chaos with the managerial situation. And just to pull the curtain back, it's 4:00 on Wednesday. We're expecting Blackburn might still be announcing a couple of players that got done after 11 p.m. That puts it over the top for me. So I'll go Rovers. Do I want to pile the misery on Wigan? Why not? 3-0 Blackburn.
Yeah, hard to back against Blackburn in this one, isn't it? Sean Maloney just taking charge. They're having a terrible run in the bottom three. They're in real trouble. I'll say 2-0. I'll say a little bit closer, but 2-0 Blackburn.
There we go. Matt Holland with the predictions this week. So, guys, play along in the comments. 1 for an outcome, 1 for a home, 1 for away. Bonus points. So if you get the score right, you get all 4. If he gets past Sam Parkin, it's a standing ovation at the top of the leaderboard.
It's a miracle.
But the Norwich City commentator in the sites. Matt and I are now going to chat for a little while longer. We might get into some Charlton stuff, some Ipswich stuff, maybe some Ireland stuff as well. We'll see where we get to. You can get that over on Patreon. So patreon.com/Benjamin Bloom. Get your predictions in the comments and we'll see where Matt lands on the leaderboard.